Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Green Lane with Derville. I have as my guest today Dr. Tamara Chambers Richards. Um, Known her for a while, but she was my senior, so we never interacted in college or anything. But um, we have formed a relationship or friendship professionally and socially. And we have a common thread again through Northern Caribbean University. We talk about that some more. But she's my guest this afternoon. Dr. Richards is wife, mother, educator, and author, a product of St. Elizabeth, Jamaica. We call it the breadbasket of Jamaica because of its strong agricultural presence in Jamaica. She now resides in British Columbia, Canada. She's married to Andrew Richards, and together they have two children, Justin Andrew and Sadie Jade. Now, Justin is also an author, I must add. She currently serves as the Dean of Health Sciences at the College of New Caledonia in Prince George, BC. An unrepentant believer in the power of gratitude. She shares moments of gratefulness in the three-part series of books she wrote. The title, Highest Praise, Chronicles of a Grateful Heart. 3-book series published and available on Amazon. Dr. Richards, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Thank you for your time, away from your family and other planned events that you have.
Thank you so much for having me, Derville. My pleasure.
Awesome. We are going to just jump into it. We have 1 hour to talk about all these things, so we're going to just jump into it. You can tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, from Jamaica, and then we move into Canada, and then we're just going to talk about everything else and as we plan. So go ahead and give us some background. Who are you?
Some background. Well,
Yes,
I like to just say I'm Tamara.
you're
What
Tamara.
what embodies Tamara? Educationally, I hold a bachelor's of science in medical laboratory technology from Northern Caribbean University and a master of public health from Northern Caribbean University as well.
Mhm.
And my third degree is from the University of Saskatchewan. It's a PhD in epidemiology. And that's where my journey began, so to speak.
Yeah.
I I would have spent more than half my life right now, coming to think about it, as an educator. Even as a medical laboratory
Mhm.
technologist, I am an educator through and through.
Yeah.
So that's a little about just my professional background.
Now, we have something in common that I didn't know until recently. My father is from St. Elizabeth. My father is from Parity, District of Parity, St. Elizabeth.
Oh,
So Black River is his place, that community, that surrounding area. And we would go down there in summer when it's mango time, especially, and we would, just spend time with my aunts and stuff. So you're from St. Elizabeth. Which part of St. Elizabeth are you from?
I'm from Magotty,
Okay, okay, okay.
which is northwest St. Elizabeth, but my grandmother is actually from Parity. That's my mother's
Oh,
mother. So we would
oh,
have come through White Hill and Magotty.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, there you go, even closer, right? So we have that connection from a beautiful parish. So, just to dig deeper, um, you have two children and you're married to Andrew, my friend as well. Um, Tell us about family. How has family shaped you as an educator, or how has being an educator shaped you as a mom?
That's That's an interesting question, Derville. How has being an educator shaped me as a mom? Well,
Mhm.
I would say that I would almost like to say that I am a born educator from a long line
Oh.
of educators, and I I would have been brought up in by mature parents. And so the being a mother is no different from being an educator. I like to
Mhm.
tell people that being an educator is like running a family. So there are some alignments there to education and family life. But as a career mom, there's that need, I would say, to balance family
Mhm.
with achieving in your career. And so it's helped me, being a mother has helped me to be deliberate about the time I put in at work and the time I put in with family, though I still get complaints from the family around needing quality time, etc., etc.
Yeah. So, what do you do? You mentioned balance, and we hear the word all the time. So, what do you do to balance that? Specific things that you do to make sure the family gets you and your career gets you as well, the best of you.
Well, I think it's important to be strategic and to be planful. One of the things that I hold very close is just being able to set and clarify boundaries. So work stays at work. And even I was looking at my calendar recently, and my lunch hour, I've been so deliberate at naming it self-care. And
Hmm.
I am very protective of that time, because it means then that that's the time, that's my time to recharge during the day. And just as how I don't expect emails after hours, I
Hmm.
don't send emails after hours. So I
Right.
model the way
Right.
for folks. And so, but then it's, there are other things that I'm doing, which is why I am working on being more deliberate with my family, with our time together. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Got it. Can you share with us the inspiration behind your decision to migrate from Jamaica to Canada with your family to pursue a PhD? And how did this journey shape your personal and professional life? Because we know that's a big part of the story, that transition from Jamaica to Canada. Share that with us.
Absolutely. So Derville, I had been an educational administrator for roughly 7 years at Northern Caribbean University.
Hmm.
I felt like I had tapped out at that academic chair level and needed a PhD in order to advance my career. So it meant, as I had done 2 degrees at Northern Caribbean University, I am a strong believer in Christian education.
Hmm.
I felt that I needed to branch out for more depth. And so I chose Canada to pursue my PhD because their spouse could get an open work permit.
Right.
And there was no way I was going to be leaving my family. Of course, what needs to be clarified is that the children, one had just turned 3. So
Hmm.
when I decided that I was going to pursue my education, that child was 2 and the
Hmm.
other was 1. So by the time we got to Canada, the children were 3 and 1 year old.
Hmm.
Um, the journey was a test through and through, to be honest with you. It was quite a test, and it solidified my faith. My
Hmm.
husband and I got closer,
Hmm.
because when you move to a country and
Yeah.
move to a province like Saskatchewan, there are very few people like you, much less family,
Yep.
right? So you have to learn to be to spend time together and to map the pathway together out. And it was so hard,
Hmm.
because you've moved to this country.
Hmm.
And in Jamaica, we had a, because of course I'm a career person, as a leader, we had a living helper who would take care of the children and take care of the household, so to speak. And one of the reasons I thought I moved was because I thought my children were being raised by somebody else, and so this is my opportunity to to raise the children. But it was really too much.
Yeah.
It was a horrible, harsh,
Yeah.
and hard transition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask because Myself, my wife and I, with no children, we made that transition as well. You had two young children who needed constant care. How did you prepare for that move? What did you do to at least get you someplace in on the readiness spectrum? How did you get ready for that move?
Well, I thought we were very prepared, but clearly we were not. So the one of the things that is so important is that when you're moving into a new country, you
Hmm.
have to think about what are the services that are available. So what and for me, it's important to know that you don't have a lot of money. So
Hmm.
what are the social services that are available? So
Hmm.
I would have seen the food bank from then, and
Hmm.
adjacent to the food bank would have been, I don't remember what it was called, but it was a kind of store. I call it the toonie store, so $2.
Hmm.
So and just checked out what's the proximity of daycare facilities to bus stops and so on. That
Hmm.
is so important because you don't want to spend all of your money, the little money that you have, in traveling costs
Yeah.
and in food costs.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you a little story
Yeah.
quite quickly about that that understanding coming from an academic chair and reframing my mind now that I am now a poor student, and that's what I'm going to be. And so it's going to that store. There weren't diapers, there were swimwear for children.
Hmm.
And I use my tune, I would get items, little vials of lotion and toiletries and the swimwear, and I use them as pull-ups for the little girl, and that's part of how we managed. We could go on and talk about when the monies ran out
Yeah.
and how that transpired there.
So you were very innovative in kind of maneuvering all of that change and with a little money on a budget. That's something that many of us need to learn to be innovative, to substitute, and to help to save some money. We have a similar experience, but we're talking about you today. So that is a strong lesson. You might not, you have no idea how many persons want to figure out how to do it because they're planning to move. They have children and they have no idea what to do. A friend of ours has one child, a son, and she's finding it difficult to have a full time job and to care for him because after school care, there's a 3 year wait list in some parts of British Columbia right now. So it's very important to be innovative as a parent. But you came to Canada and you were pursuing a PhD. And even without doing one, you know it takes a lot of work, a lot of time and dedication to that, plus two young children. Can you discuss specific instances where your experiences as a migrant has influenced your administrative decisions or initiatives within the university setting? Now we're jumping into the setting that you're in because we know you did the PhD and you have a career in academia and you're now at the College of New Caledonia in Prince George. You are in a leadership role, right? So as a migrant, right, you moved from being an international student into completing the PhD, and now you're in a leadership role. Connect all of those and tell us how those decisions has kind of come together in the journey.
So, Derville, I would say that the journey it's deliberate, it's planful, it's strategic, and it's also serendipitous. And as an immigrant, how that has shaped the decisions that I've made. So, in my current role, I'm no longer the co-chair of the Student Success and Retention Committee, but I was very deliberate in accepting that role
Hmm.
because of my experiences as a migrant. Why? The same brain that you're using to study It's the
Mm-hmm.
same brain that you're using to take care of the children, that you're using to figure out housing, figure out food, figure out clothing, etc. And so that experience helped me to give back.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by giving back on that community is making sure that I am an advocate for all students.
Mm-hmm.
And all students include students of diverse backgrounds and origins, international students, all students who would need wraparound services to help
Mm-hmm.
to navigate so that they can do well. I'm very, very, very aware
Mm-hmm.
of the needs of students, and the needs are becoming more and more today. And
Mm-hmm.
so my experience, my lived experience, does drive the way that I lead, not just students, but my team
And
who need that space
that's a
to
perfect answer. That's a perfect answer because you don't have to guess how to do something. You know how to do it because you've lived it, right? And that's wonderful. I want to kind of add to that answer another question. Being a migrant and now being in a leadership position, of course, is it's not your origin or that you're a black woman that lends itself to your skill, right, and your tenacity and what you can do, your intellect. But how is you're a migrant, a black woman in a leadership role in higher education in Canada? How has your presence been received by non-immigrants, right? Like persons who are Canadian or indigenous students or co-workers.
I think you're stirring up an ant's nest here, Derville.
All right, let's not stir it up too much because it's a very important
Um,
bit of the experience too.
I would say that experience ranged from disbelief to
Mm-hmm.
resistance to acceptance to welcoming, depending on where in the journey we're talking about. I will share a quick experience that I had when I was
Yeah.
working as a lecturer at a small college.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I was in the foyer of the college, and one individual who I thought I had a great relationship with, this was a more mature individual
Mm-hmm.
who was very complimentary in my classes, who did well in my courses, and I really thought I had built a rapport with this individual, and I respected this individual and looked forward. But
Yeah.
this person graduated, and I was in the foyer at the college one day, and the person came in, and when the person saw me, the person said, um, "You're still here." But it wasn't in a way like, "Hey, you're still here." It was like, "How comes you're still here?"
Yeah.
Right? But I recall that one other lecturer had told me that that person had said had made some scathing remarks to
Mm-hmm.
say, "How come somebody like me
Mm-hmm.
is teaching at a Canadian college if I have what it takes to teach at a Canadian college?" So
Yeah.
the microaggressions
Yeah.
have been hard to handle. What that did for me, though, what that experience did for me, rather than getting upset, I chose to remain humble and to remember that you are here, Tamara, for a PhD. And because you're here for a PhD, nobody's prejudice can stop you from where you are meant to be. So
Mm-hmm.
having that space to remind myself of my goal, my dreams, my vision was what kept me and what kept me going. Because the reason I said you've stirred up an ant's nest is because
Mm.
the experiences have not all been great.
Right. Yeah.
So I've chosen to focus on the lessons from the experience and the positive messages.
But let me tell you something. You may not think about it too much because you're in the space, but you have two children, right? You have two children, and you are they are both black children in Canada, and they have seen mommy go through certain things, and after the tribulation, mommy looks happy, mommy is thriving. They are seeing that. And your son has taken a page from your book and he has stepped out of his little young shell without an experience. and he has published a book. So don't take it lightly. You're going through the tough times, but you're showing your children and other persons that it can be done despite all the isms and schisms. And I have to share this too. When I got a job, last job I got, and I was being introduced to the senior staff, one of the senior staff said to me, "Oh, you don't look like you have that kind of experience." I didn't really read much into it, but I was thinking to myself, what does experience look like? Right? So you have those what you call microaggressions when persons look at you, right? And they think you may not be able to do certain things because of how you look. So yeah, that's something that persons have to deal with in real life as well as immigrants. We're going to push ahead. We're going to push ahead. What would you say to someone who is moving the way you moved to pursue higher education? How do they effectively navigate challenges and maximize the opportunities? Because as I said, it
Um,
won't always be good.
no, it won't always be good. And so my first advice is for folks to understand that migration is no bed of roses. So one, you better plan those finances wisely. Forget about status. And this message, I think I should share it, especially as some of our migrants from an Afro-Carib setting, we
Mm-hmm,
are very big on status. So
mm-hmm,
we need to forget about status and, as I said earlier, tap into any available social services. Um, Remember your goal. You want to be, you won't be a poor student if that's the pathway that you're choosing. You won't be a poor student forever. Make sure that both you and your partner have a plan because it can be a culture shock. So,
mm-hmm.
for example, I am the student, which means that I have a study permit, so I can only work during that time for 20 hours per week, or
Mm-hmm.
I'll be breaching the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And so my husband would have an open work permit. And so what he did was that he took on three jobs. His first job was at 7-Eleven, then the next job at a bank, then the next job as a busser at a hotel,
Mm-hmm.
and forgetting pride and knowing that this is what we have to do to be able to survive. And I pitched in too. I
Yeah.
pitched in, I did the things that I could do, multiple research projects and so on with some student stipends and eventually working at a school while studying. So it's understanding that need for resilience very early on in the journey and knowing that the the exchange rate
Mm-hmm.
is different, and for a time until you get a job and start working you'll be converting the dollars
Mm-hmm.
from your country
Yes.
to the dollars in a new country, and that in itself is expensive. So be wise. I'll say it again and again and again. Be wise with those finances and tap into the social services that are available.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about status
Yeah.
and plan together who is going to do what. If you have children, how are the children going to be taken care of? Because childcare is very expensive in my experience.
Yeah.
Childcare is what took away all the money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if we weren't careful, we would have been out on the street starving.
Absolutely. And we can share some parallels in our journey as well, because I had to learn quickly to humble myself from where I was coming from in Jamaica, and Andrew and I started at retail. Sometimes persons come here, many persons, many immigrants come to Canada, and they have high expectations, but then they recognize that there is something called Canadian work experience that they have to get, that employers are looking for, and different things. So they have to kind of start from somewhere where, you mean, they're underemployed for a while, and then they build themselves. Those are very, very key lessons for anyone who is planning on taking that step. Very
I
important.
want to say,
Yeah,
I want to add to that, Derville, because I think sometimes when we're in spaces where people expect little of us, It's
Mhm.
easy to live up to the expectations of others. But I want to say that part of the transition is putting yourself out there and not being limited by others' views of you,
Yeah.
because this is a global world and you belong to that table just like anybody else.
Mhm.
I just want us to remember that. And I'll share too. I remember when I got my permanent residency and I was looking for a job,
Mhm.
and someone offered me a position that would pay $60,000, and
Yeah.
I said, I appreciate that, but truly I can't work for that.
Mhm.
I know that that person was looking out for me,
Mhm.
but I knew my worth.
Yeah.
So when the person asked me the salary range that I was expecting and I shared it, they said to me, "Good luck with that.
Yeah.
I wish you luck."
Yeah.
I wasn't daunted though, and a few months later, well, as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to say, while we're talking about that transition piece, and that you are to humble yourself and be realistic, it also doesn't mean that you're to continue to
Yes.
take those minimum wage jobs and whatever.
Important.
For a time you
Yes.
need to adjust and have those jobs as a springboard into where
Mhm.
you should be, and
Yes.
to know your worth. So
Mhm.
that's one of the lessons that I want to share, is for folks to know your worth.
Know
Know you are.
your worth. Know your
Know.
worth. If you haven't taken anything from the discussion yet, take that one. Know your worth. Know it. Very, very, very important. I want to share a comment that Tasha made earlier. She said, "Love that reality you shared. That's a smart way of saving money." And that's when we were discussing about you being innovative and using the resources at your hand to take care of your family and yourself and to save money, because that's a very important lesson, and something that we should practice even after we start making money, right? It's still necessary for us to be innovative. So
Absolutely.
we can make the best of that. We're going to move over now a little bit into your book series. So you decided to write and to share your experience and to really, pour your heart out into these books, and to share with the world your experience and your heart of gratitude and why gratitude is so important. So you wrote a 3-book series entitled Highest Praise! Exclamation. Chronicles of a Grateful Heart. I'm just going to share that on the screen. So that's your 3-book series, all right? And I was privileged to be a part of that journey, in that you decided to use my small business, the publishing, NCH Publishing, to publish these books. Privilege it was to work with you on publishing these books. And you have these wonderful gems in these books: gratitude and family and your journey. And you shared so much of your own life. Can you discuss the key themes or messages you aimed to convey through writing these books?
Thanks, thanks, Derville. I think the pleasure in having you on the journey was all mine. So thanks for that as well.
You're welcome, and thank you as well.
Key themes, I'd say: faith, 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 positivity and gratitude, taking stock of failure. And I'll add to that the way to a better life, the lesson there is that the way to a better life is paved with hardships, detours, sadness, trials. As an immigrant, microaggressions, silencing, resistance, they're all part of the game. But if you keep a grateful and open heart, victories, triumphs, rewards will find you. That's the summary.
Mhm.
So book one talks about when we decided that we were coming to Canada, and the whole process leading up to, preparing to get in there to live in 1 year. Book two is year two, which is the year of just death and trials and trying to, I would say, just consumed with getting permanent residency, because permanent residency for me was meant saving money.
Mm-hmm.
So while I'm a student, I am an international student, and that means that the tuition rate is 1.5 to 2 times higher. So I am consumed in getting permanent residency, because it means that once you become a permanent resident, then you're saving money because your fees are less. And once you become a permanent resident, it means that the job opportunities, you no longer need to work 20 hours per week.
Right.
Job opportunities open up. So book 2 is around the debts and that consumption and disappointments, etc. And book 3 now is, I would say that the theme of that one is around, moving into the working world from a diverse university environment now to a real space where now you are, your shell is not the quite the acceptable shell, and so you are the silencing and the microaggressions and the plain old racism and how to navigate all of that, and ending up though in triumph and in a place of welcome.
Yes.
And just being grateful for all the steps throughout.
Yeah, the Bible tells us in, I think it's Ephesians or Colossians, I don't remember, but to rejoice in our hardships, because our hardships bring perseverance, and our perseverance builds character, and our character building ends up with hope. And it's those journeys, those experiences that teach us how to be full, compatible, strong human beings. And you started by saying faith, faith, faith. How has that pushed you and propelled you to where you are now? Talk to us a bit about faith.
I'll tell you a little about faith. So, the books didn't quite start out as books. They started out as journal entries, just to share the testimonies of God's goodness. That's one. Two, to vent my frustrations, and I would say to document some unbelievable experiences. The process gave me hope and understanding that God cares, God cares. Everything that matters to us matters to him. His love for us is immeasurable, Derville. Beyond that, these books help me to reconcile my value. When any little doubt creeps in, I remind myself that I'm a steward of gifts that I've been given. Hiding is not humility. When any little imposter syndrome comes in, hiding is not humility. You're not being a good steward of your gifts. Confidence is not conceit. And the books help me to realize that I have a responsibility to the migrant community to live a purposeful, not a pointless life. So if I were to sum it up, what my experience as a migrant has done for me is that it has certainly helped me to build my confidence. I know who I am, and I know whose I am, and I know where I am going, because I know that he who leads me is only taking me to great places for a future and an expected end. And that's one of the lessons that I want people to take away too, right? Is part of knowing your worth is knowing whose you are and knowing that you are created for excellence, for great things.
That's perfect. And if persons should read the books, they will get all of that and more. The books are available on Amazon right now. If you have your phone in your hand, you can go ahead and scan that QR code, and you can go straight to the books, and you can purchase them in ebook or paperback and see what for yourself. Get that experience firsthand that Dr. Richards wrote about. I I want to the question. The next question is specific to being a PhD candidate and how that resonated throughout your book series. The final book of the series, the picture on the cover is you, pretty much giving praise for reaching that milestone. How has that resonated throughout the book series? And how did these books contribute to your personal growth? I think we may have lost Dr. Richards there for a bit. Um, while hopefully she can come back on shortly. As soon as she gets back on, I'll have her continue. But you can get these books on Amazon. You can go online and you can find them there. Um, these books were written and published by NTH Publishing. That's my small publishing company, for those of you who wanted to know. And it was a pleasure to work on those books with her. And when she returns, she will continue to talk about the journey that she shared in these books. But you heard for yourself all those key bits of information about persons who want to move, persons who want to make the transition, not sure what to do. And you're thinking, you're on the wayside, you're thinking, you're not sure, you're worried. I hope you were listening to those key bits of advice from her. I'm going to have her join the conversation and we're going to continue to share with Dr. Richards. Welcome back to the
Thanks,
show.
Darville.
So I was asking that being a PhD candidate, how it resonated throughout the book series, and how has writing these books contributed to your personal growth?
You know, Darville, I'll say that I'm naturally introspective, and the migration experience can be hard on families. And studies show that it takes 10 years for a migrant to get back to the place that they were in their home country.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you imagine? I have left as an academic chair, and to now wait 10 years to get back to an academic chair. What, however, I was privileged to work in my field
Mm-hmm.
from the second year.
Yeah.
Started lecturing at a college at the second year, not necessarily at the level that I was, but that allowed me to transition in less than 3 years to being an academic chair. So that need to balance starting over
Mm-hmm.
with the patience that you will get back there is so key. And it's in the lesson in patience, because for me, like, I spent 3.5 years as an academic chair, and for me that was like I'd already spent 7 years as an academic chair.
Mm-hmm.
So 7 plus 3 is 10 years. So it's like you're just waiting, waiting, waiting. But if I were to have spent 10 years as an academic chair based on the studies, then that would have been a tremendous weight. But the point I'm making is the point of gratitude, and I think we need to focus on positivity, because I think when we're in a positive cycle, more positive things happen.
Yeah.
And when we are praising, there are more reasons for praise,
Mm-hmm.
versus when we are in a cycle of complaint,
Yeah.
find more things to complain about, and the vicious cycle, we become a part of that vicious cycle. So
Mm-hmm.
the key for me as a migrant is always being aware of that virtuous cycle and
Mm-hmm.
remaining in that virtuous cycle
Yeah.
through gratitude, no matter how much change you're
Mm-hmm.
encountering and how uncertain the times. are.
Yeah. So based on your experience, know that you've settled in, pretty much settled in, and how have you found yourself fitting in not fitting in, like conforming, but becoming a part of the general community and your community at the college?
Um, it's funny you asked that, Derville. I'll start with the community at the college.
Yeah.
I the college for me, if I hadn't moved to this college, I would have gone home, and the taste in my mouth of Canada would not have been a good one. So I think God, in His wisdom, created
Hmm.
this opportunity so I could view Canada as a wonderful, welcoming space. So the college itself is
Hmm.
is is welcoming. I wouldn't say that any issues being a diverse person, I chalk it up to non-malicious ignorance.
Yeah.
That's and so it's easy then to navigate, to share, to educate. And
Hmm.
so how I've fit in outside of my role and just being who I am, I think it's
Hmm.
important to be authentic. I don't apologize for being a Black woman in leadership, an immigrant Black woman with an accent. I
Hmm.
don't try to put on an accent. I keep the one that I have because
Hmm.
it's important for me to
Yeah.
present as myself, to
Hmm.
to to allow people to see a Black immigrant woman in these spaces, because representation matters.
Yeah.
And I transition that with saying that um, one of the things that I've done, and it was quite most of the things that I do are, to me, they're serendipitous. It's not
Hmm.
like I set out to, oh, I'm going to do this today or tomorrow. So I moved to this college in 2020, and it was
Hmm.
right in the midst of the George Floyd situation.
Yes.
And so as academic leaders, one individual said, we are the academy. What are we going to do about this?
Hmm.
And we had all gone to a seminar, which was not good, by the way, but there was one book that the host had mentioned, which we took away. And I suggested, how about we start a book club, and we start by reading that book, and then we perpetuate multiple book clubs across the institute. Well,
Hmm.
Derville, I'll tell you that this book club has become the decolonizing education community of practice. I won a national award, well, bronze, for
Hmm.
academic leadership because of the work in diversity, inclusion, and equity.
Hmm.
And it's because of standing strong in who you are and being authentic. People might not like the
Hmm.
shell that you're in, but they will come to
Yeah.
respect you. And being courageous, not letting negative experiences shape your trajectory. God has a beautiful plan for your life. And when He's
Absolutely.
given
Yeah.
you gifts, He will allow you to stand.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's I'm happy you kind of segued into DEI for a little bit because it's a hot button topic. It's everywhere. And some organizations don't know what to do with it. Some are putting in rules to manage it, and some are removing the rules. It's a kind of a seesaw. But I had a question to ask about that. As an academic administrator, how do you actively promote diversity and inclusion within your university? What kind of initiatives do you have to foster a supportive and inclusive environment?
So I talked a little about that decolonizing education community of practice, and
Yeah.
um, we've transitioned to having three major events. We are the planners, the committee.
Hmm.
We are the planners of three major events every academic year:
Hmm.
an anti-racism event, an Indigenous event,
Hmm.
and the Pride event. Um, and there is also the need for focusing on the truth and reconciliation calls to action and
Hmm.
incorporating that. In one of the things that we did in my school is that we developed an indigenous cultural competency course, and that that course will be in every single program within the School of Health Sciences. and
That's
and
awesome.
and the idea now is that we are transitioning to ensuring that our students are getting experiences. And so we are seeing diverse and underserved patients in our dental clinic as part of the service learning and student experience of the students, to give them an experience with compassion and empathy, and
Mhm.
making sure that the experience that our underserved populations have, that they're
Mhm.
welcoming experiences. and
Mhm.
and so we continue to, like I said, have this virtuous cycle of well-being and
Mhm.
belonging amongst everyone,
Yeah.
because what touches diverse groups is beneficial for all groups, and that's the message that we're taking away and that we're sharing with others.
That's fantastic. I spent the time to do a course in on Indigenous Canada, and it opened my mind. I, in being in a country, you hear about Indigenous people, but you don't understand. So I'm happy you are doing that, because more persons need that understanding of what truth and reconciliation is. We hear it on TV, we see it being debated, but we're not sure what it's all about. So I'm happy that's a part of the program as well, and to include all groups. And I'm happy you mentioned compassion, because when we hear about DEI, we kind of start isolating different groups of people, and you don't really hear about how we should treat each other, that love, that compassion, right? To be welcoming to people. They think differently, but you welcome that. But that's not really what we see largely happening. So I'm happy that's the way you are approaching it at your college. In terms of your books, you must have gotten some feedback from readers, persons who have read the book. What kind of impact have they shared with you regarding what you shared in your books?
Well, I would say that I have received feedback, um, that the stories transport the readers to that place being
Mm-hmm.
written about. One lady, not a migrant, born and raised Canadian, told me that she isn't a reader, but she just could not put book one down, and she couldn't wait for book two, and etc. etc.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a past co-worker who is a leader shared that the books were very timely for the point in time that they were in their leadership journey. Professionally, the
Mm-hmm.
feedback has given me courage to share my story, because if you
Wow.
know anything about me, you know that I'm an introvert. I don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily want to call attention to myself.
Uh-huh.
And so, but the feedback is saying we need to hear more of these experiences of others,
Mm-hmm.
not just how you've transitioned from getting here to Canada
Mm-hmm.
and and got your permanent residency and your citizenship, but how you have found space,
Mm-hmm.
authentic space, as a leader
Yeah.
and as a senior leader, as an immigrant.
Yeah.
And so it's, like I said, it's important for me to share that responsibility with others.
Mm-hmm.
And the feedback is just that the stories are written in such a way that it's unique, and the book can meet many different needs
Yeah.
across the space, not just for immigrants who are looking to migrate, but for leaders,
Mm-hmm.
for not just for women, but for anybody
Yeah.
who has similar experiences with family and navigating, studies and leading and working, etc.
Yeah. What I found in writing is that when you write, an attempt to be impactful can be hard, but once you find those words to share that story, especially from a personal perspective, it resonates. It hits certain chords with persons, and it's more powerful when persons know they're not alone. They can do that too. Because I've spoken to some young people on a Zoom meeting I was invited to, and so many of them have an idea. They want to do these things. It's in their mind. God gave them the idea, but they wouldn't dare move towards it because they're not sure how people will respond. And that's what many people are afraid of. How will the public respond? So I'm happy you mentioned that. And you have done it. Being an introvert, you have put out a 3 book series, which is quite a paradox, which has been resonating with an audience of people. I want to share another comment. You were talking about being authentic. You mentioned that word a few times. And Tash again says that part, being authentic. Too many of us, being immigrants, take on an accent as a way to feel a part of. So we think we need to change who we are or where we are from to kind of meld in, to conform to what we see. But a part of to have diversity, it means you need to be your authentic self, and that's something that resonated as well. um Tash also says no one wants to talk about the things that didn't go as planned, and I often say this: when you look at social media, persons put the best out there. They put the best of everything, and you don't really get the reality of life from what you see. So it's also a fantastic thing that you were able to share real life experiences, from childcare to transitioning to budgeting, running out of money, the challenges, racisms, but then you also shared the triumphs. So I'm going to
Absolutely.
share the graphic of the books again, just to see that transition. So book 1 had that climbing experience, going up that mountain. You don't see that bit about people's lives on social media. The climbing, the rough times, the heading to the top, right? And then you get to the top and you are just giving God praise for what he has done, for where he has taken you from to where you are now. Book 2. And book 3, you are just basking in triumph after gone being put through all the challenges. So it's a wonderful series of books with wonderful lessons for people to learn and to read and to get that inspiration from. Um, Academia is there. We've talked a lot about it in terms of the wider community, because we've seen that you've shared some of your walks. You're walking to work sometimes, and you're sharing some chronicles, and you are in winter and spring. You're going through those changes, those times, and you're sharing. How have you found your presence impacting the community outside of the school?
Before I get into that in greater details, Derville, I wanted to touch upon, um, yes, the impact in the community, but that many times leaders are put on a pedestal. So there's
Mm-hmm.
pedestalism,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't embrace vulnerability. But part of leadership is vulnerability, and it's sharing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's being out there in winter when the cheeks are a little bit more swollen. Then in spring you see it start coming down in summer, and so on. But how I've been sharing with the communities that we have, our family has a YouTube channel, Jamming with the Richards. I have my own channel,
Mm-hmm.
uh, HP Chronicles,
Yeah.
and there I'm on Facebook all the time with my reels, on TikTok with my reels as well. And outside of my own personal thing, I have worked with the Immigrant and Multicultural Services Society. So from time to time there are groups that come in to the community that might not speak English well, that might need to learn how to navigate the the newness of
Mm-hmm.
being in a new country. And so I avail myself
Yeah.
just to answer questions, just to share, and just to bring a smile,
Mm-hmm.
and just give my card if and share um, resumes, right, within the circle of people who knows,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just remembering where I'm coming from and what
Yeah.
I would have needed, and just making sure that people are valued for who they are
Mm-hmm.
and being in that space. because when God puts you in a space, part of being put in that space is to serve others. And so that's what I take away and how I manage to be a part of the community.
Nice, nice. That's awesome. Um, Kareen shared, I was asking where to get the books to buy. Can you share that quickly?
So the books are on Amazon, Karine, but I have a whole box. So if you DM me, I we can if you're in the Canadian space and you DM me, then we can make some arrangements. Other than that, the books are available on Amazon.
There you go, Kareen. You can get it shipped directly to you from Tamara, or you can go on Amazon. They're there. And if you scan that barcode on that flyer, you can purchase your books right now. If you scan the barcode, Amazon.ca, you just can type in the name of the book or the author's name, and you'll find the book right there on Amazon.ca. So as we come down, the final question for you. Looking ahead, um, what are your aspirations for the future, both in your writing career and academic admin role? How do you plan to continue making a meaningful impact on the lives of others?
That's a tough question for me because I kind of just follow where God leads.
Yeah.
If I were to answer it as a
Yes.
leader, setting an example, I'll say I'll grow where I'm planted. I wouldn't say it's an aspiration, but I know within myself that if I remain in academia, I will head an institution one day. I
Yeah.
just know that.
Yeah.
My next book, I haven't written it yet, but it's titled "You Shall Recover All."
Yeah.
It's gonna be deeply vulnerable, etc. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
written it yet. I need
Yeah.
certain permissions, etc.
Yes.
And I see myself continuing to share my story with others to inspire hope and confidence. Of course, the next big step is to set up with my siblings my mother's foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And once that is up and running, part proceeds from my book sales will go to that to fund scholarship for youth who
Mm-hmm.
depend on education for their path to success, to brighter future. So that I mentioned before that my mother is that like I'm from a long line of educators, and my mother's dream.
Mm-hmm.
She has Alzheimer's now, so um, she hasn't been able to fulfill that dream
Mm-hmm.
of just having that foundation. So we want to be able to do that before it's a memorial.
Yeah.
And so that's a part of my journey as well as bringing on that name and that desire to help others to
Yeah.
grow and learn and to be their best selves.
That is fantastic. That's all wonderful stuff. Being an introvert, you're doing a lot of extroversion stuff. You are really putting yourself out there, and the next book will be more vulnerable. Well, we're looking forward to that, and I wish you all the best. And anything I can do to kind of push anything you're doing forward, feel free to reach out. Of course, I'll reach out to you as well. Um, Dr. Tamara Chambers Richards. Tamara, she
Yes.
has been with us. Tamara shared her experience, her family, her job, what her parts of her life with us to help us to understand change in uncertain times and how we can navigate the negatives and the positives and take advantage of all those opportunities to become who we should be. Even if you're an introvert, you can do it. Challenges life come with them. And again, she is author of Chronicles, Highest Praise, Chronicles of a Grateful Heart, a 3-book series available on Amazon where she shares her journey. um, you can get a lot of inspiration and encouragement from these books. They are available on Amazon. If you are in Canada, reach out to her and she can send you copies directly. Dr. Richards, Tamara, thank you so much for the time you've taken to share with us on this episode of The Green Lane. Until next time, we'll talk some more about your upcoming book when it's published. Thank you for everyone who joined, and take care. Enjoy your weekend and go into the week knowing your value. Know your value and know that God is right there with you. As a matter of fact, He's already there. So have no fear. Dr.
Thank you,
Richard,
Darville. And if you
you
give me
are
the last word, I
absolutely,
will just say,
yes,
don't limit yourself. Leap. Thank you for having me.
you are welcome. And thank you so much for sharing. Until next time, next week, all being well. This has been another episode of The Green Lane. Take care of yourselves until next time.